Hello and welcome to WebTexTube. In this video, we will be covering carrying a function. Carrying a function is a transformation of a function that takes multiple arguments into a function that takes a sequence of single argument, single parameter, as you can say. Okay, so I have a documentation to show you that it says the transformation carrying is the transformation of a function with multiple arguments into a sequence of single argument functions. Okay, as you can see here, that means converting a function like this is the like we used to pass multiple argument in a function, but now we pass them like not separating by a comma, we're separating by a parenthesis. Okay, so it transformed the function which used to like this to function that takes single argument but in a sequence. Okay, so excuse me, so let me show you what I mean. Let's go to the VS Code and let's declare a function that names, and then it takes name1, name2, and after that in return name1 plus name2. Okay, so now if I want to call that function, we have to pass, let's say, 2 argument here. Okay, so now previously we had to do that, but after carrying a function, let me show you what is a carrying function and how does it works. Okay, so let's say I'm carrying that function. It's basically a couple of a way you can do that, but one of the way is I will show you which is the recent, the most recent way to do that. So let's say I'm declaring the function called names, which then takes a argument, let's say string 1, and then it will return a function. Okay, so as you can see in our application, it says the function takes an argument, one argument, and then it return another function. Okay, and then it takes an argument called b, then it return another argument. Okay, and that function then return another function, and so on and so forth. And then finally it then basically does what we want them to do. Okay, so so if we do that, then it means that that names function takes one argument, then it returns another function which takes another argument called string2, and then it returns what we want them to do, like string1 plus string2. Okay, so that is carrying function. Now if we want to call the carrying function, after carrying the function, we can call them like Mike and then let's say Jerry. Okay, so that's how we call them. And now if we console.log and save it, let's go to our app and bring the developer console menu. As you can see, we got the value here. It's basically concatenating that string1 and string2 together. Okay, so it does the same thing, but what's the difference here is now we call them by a different parameter, separating by a parenthesis. Okay, not by comma. Okay, so you might ask, okay, what's the point of this? I will show you by an example where I was working with a method called pipe from Lodash. So I have installed Lodash already. If you don't know what Lodash is a popular JavaScript library where they have lots of useful method for functional programming. Okay, so let's import something from Lodash/fp, stands for functional programming, and I will import the pipe method from there. And pipe method then takes a series of function as an argument, or a couple of function as an argument, but for that I first need couple of function. Let's declare them now. let's say I have a method called trim. It takes string as an input, and then it basically trim the string. Okay, it's a JavaScript method that is trim the string. And then I have another method called to upper that also take the string, and then it basically it basically return the string as an uppercase. Okay, and then I have a names. Let's rename it with the wrap method. Okay, so now I have three methods here, and now let's say we are calling that pipe method inside a variable called transform, where I'm calling the pipe method. So pipe method will then take function as an argument. Let me declare it first, then I will show you. Okay, let's do upper here first, and then we can call the wrap method, because the wrap method take two arguments. Okay, so I have declared already, but what is happening here is the pipe method takes function as an argument. It doesn't take anything. Okay, it just take plain function. Okay, so trim here is a function, to upper is a function, wrap is also a function. It does take function as an argument, and then what it does, and finally if we console log it, transform, and then we pass an argument here. Let's say let's declare a variable here, I mean string. Let's call it input, and then it has a string 1 2. Let's say hello world. Okay, so I have a string which has a couple of white space at the beginning and white space at the end. So then I call the trim method to get rid of the spacing, then I make it uppercase, and then we concat a string with it. So that's the general idea. Okay, so to pass the argument to the pipe method, we have to declare them in a variable, then we can pass that argument here. Okay, but as you can see, but here's the thing. So pipe method takes a function as an argument, but we did pass a function inside the pipe method. And then what happened, a pipe method then called the pipe method. When the pipe method execute, it then passed the input into the first method, which is called trim, and then it does whatever it does. Let's say it trim the string, and the whatever returning from the trim method, it passed the value to the next function, let's say to upper function. Okay, and then whatever return from that function, it then passed the value to the wrap method. Okay, so that all the pipe method does. But the problem here is I have a function called wrap that takes basically two arguments. Okay, that of course after carrying, but let's say I have a function, the same function wrap, but it takes two arguments. Okay, let's say string 1, string 2, and then it return string 1 plus string 2. Okay, so now this function takes two arguments. So let's call the pipe method with it. So we are passing one argument already, though the rest of the function takes one argument. Let's hit save, and we go to the our app, and as you can see, names is not dependent. Okay, hang on a second. Names, we call names somewhere. We get rid of that, and if we hit save, okay, as you can see, we got the value output here. Let's get rid of these errors so you don't get confused. So as you can see, I got the value out on right, but here I can see a hello world and then undefined. That is much obvious because the pipe method passed the input, which is the string, into the pipe method. Then the pipe method passed this input to the trim, then it whatever return from the trim, it passed to the next and the next, so on. But when it comes to the ref function, as you can see, ref function takes two arguments. Okay, so we passed the value from the to upper to the ref method as a first argument, but we never passed this string 2, which is the second argument. So that is undefined or null. That's why it returned undefined. Okay, and that is we don't want, but we do need to use the pipe method, let's say, and we want to pass the second argument to the ref method. So you might be thinking, okay, we are getting the value, a value to the ref method as a first argument. So what if we pass them as a second argument like this? Let's say sorry today, and then what happened? As you can see, we got a type error. It says expected a function. So what it means, we are passing a value into the ref function, which you thought previously that ref method getting already one argument, so why not we passing a different value? So what is happening actually behind the scene is a pipe method first call the trim, then the upper, then whatever is getting out from the to upper method, it passed the ref method. But before that, it calls the ref method with the today, okay, today argument, and then it basically, let's say what it returns a string plus undefined, because before the value is passing to the argument, or let's say it passing to the argument, all right, but it basically returning a string. Okay, so it returning a string, not a function. That's why the pipe is throwing an error. It's saying I need a function, not a string, so it should pass me a function. Okay, so that's how we cannot pass any argument like that. So and let's say we are passing, you can say, okay, let's pass in the transform, where it's basically it passing one argument here, so it might pass the second argument here. Let's do that then. Okay, we hit save, and you go there. As you can see, transform is not a function. Okay, transform is not a function. What does it mean? It means we are passing one argument here already. Okay, hang on a second, let's get off the error here. What it means is whenever we call it with the first argument, it did pass to the pipe method with the first argument as a trim function, and then it passed the input in the trim method, and then it basically complete the execution of this pipe method. Okay, done. And then we pass another value like that we did before, and then it called the transform again with this argument. Okay, what it means here is let's say the execution is done here with the input. Okay, so it takes the input, which is the hello world, and then it finish execution with the with this argument, and then we have another argument, and then what it does, let's comment it out to show you. So one now is basically calling the transform like this. Okay, here's the problem. So it's calling transform with this value again. Okay, but it happens after calling the input. Okay, so it takes the input and finish execution of the pipe method, then the pipe is no longer in the transform, pipe is finished, and then it calls the transform with this value. So what does it mean? That the transform is a function, but transform is never a function. We basically declaring the pipe method inside that variable, which does make sense, because whenever we're calling transform from the beginning, as I should say, from the beginning, when it calls the transform, it point to this pipe method, and then it said, okay, you passed me one argument, I'm not a function, but I have a method called pipe. It does take a method, argument, so let's pass in the input there. Okay, and it finish execution, and then it come to the today, and it says, okay, now my execution is done. I have no function that takes argument, or I have no function anymore. That does it mean that you calling me as a function? that it transform itself is not a function, because we are not never returning here like as we did previously. Okay, so it means that transform is not a function, but we passing a argument just like this. That's why it's throwing an error. Okay, so the second approach also didn't work. Okay, so how can we pass this value, the second argument, to the ref function? Let's assume that I do need to pass two arguments, and I do need to call the ref function. Okay, in this case, the carrying method, carrying technique comes to play. What carrying does, excuse me, so let's say we are carrying the function ref. We get rid of that function, and as I told you earlier, that this is the carrying function. Okay, it transform, or let's say we ourselves declaring the function as a carrying function. Okay, so it does an operation with two arguments. As you can see at the end, is taking two arguments and adding together. But when the ref function is executing or calling, it calls with the single argument first. Okay, and then this function return another function. Okay, that takes another argument. Okay, so it's similar like this. So let's say ref let's say I have a value here with a string mic, okay, and then I never pass with a comma, I pass with a parenthesis. Okay, with a parenthesis. So then it will pass the mic into the ref function. Okay, and then it will go to the second statement, which return another function. Okay, and then it asks for an argument. So it's saying that, okay, you want me to return another function, and therefore you told me to take an argument. Where is the argument? Okay, at that point we can pass the argument like this. Okay, I'm saying, okay, you need a second argument, so there is the second argument separated by a parenthesis. Then this value Jerry is passed to this ref function inside, which return another function, and pass this Jerry to that string 2, and then it basically does whatever we want them to do. So then what happened was, the relief here is pipe method would execute with the single argument like input, it passing to whatever, and done execution like I said before, and come to ref function. At this point, okay, ref is basically executing with a single argument. And then what happened is, let me show you in the comment so I can give you a better idea. Let's say I'm executing this pipe method, okay, and then after that it called the trim, then it went to upper method, and then I have finally our ref method, which basically takes two arguments like this. Okay, so that's the carrying function. Previously we had a single function execution with two value, let's say two value or two argument, but now we are declaring that as a two multiple argument, but in a sequential order. So it execute, when it comes to ref, it basically execute the ref method. Okay, then it execute the ref method, and then here we pass the second argument here like that. Okay, let's hit a space and today, and let's also do that in uppercase. So okay, so when we pass the second argument in the transform like the pipe method, and then when the execution finish with the input first argument, it then get the second argument, and then it go back there again, and that time transform here wasn't transform here, it never stood like this in the second time, because we went inside the transform. As I said, transform looking for, okay, you want me to look for another function inside of me. Yeah, I do get another function that takes a second argument, which is ref. So ref first time is done, and it asks for the second argument. So that means it looks like this, looks like this in the second execution. So it does have a placeholder or a place to supply the value or transfer the value. Okay, at that time the transfer method never like this, it was like this. Okay, so then the today, I mean the second argument will pass to the transform into the pipe method, and that time it look for okay pipe here with a single single argument and single execution, trim as a single execution, to as a single execution, and then wrap with the double execution. That means the value is designated for the wrap component, wrap function. Okay, and then it basically transforms the value to the wrap, which then does this operation and return the value. Okay, I think let's save the value and basically let me show you what I mean. Let's reload the app, and as you can see I got the value just like what I wanted. So that means I successfully able to call the pipe method with multiple argument, of course, inside the wrap component, but this time without an error or without any hassle. So I did call the wrap method with a single argument first, and then I passed the second argument to the pipe method, and it is successfully executed. So what it means, it is similar to let's say pipe with the let's call pipe. I'm not executing, but I'm just showing you that what actually happening behind the scene. Okay, and I have a to upper, and then I have a wrap with similar like this. Okay, so as I showed you previously before the pipe method, that whenever we want to call a carrying function, we do not pass separated by a comma, we pass them by a parenthesis. Means this function has a sequence of function returning. Okay, let's see here. It's saying that is a sequence of single argument function. So what it does inside the wrap method, I have a sequence of single argumented function. Okay, so that is a carrying method. Okay, so there is a plenty of use cases where you can use the carrying function. So I just showed you one, but there's a plenty. When you go to the functional programming, you will see lots of use cases, lots of situations where you might want to use the carrying function. Okay, it's very useful function and useful technique, basically, I should say, and that basically save you from a lots of hassle. Okay, as I told you that there is a multiple way of defining the carrying function, so you have your idea clear at this point, I believe. So let's get rid of everything. So I want to show you that there's another way of declaring a carrying function. Let's say I have a function in an older approach, function names that take name 1 and name 2, right, and then it return name 1 plus name 2, right. That's all it does. And now if we want to carrying that function, we need to define another function. Okay, let's call it carry, and that carry basically takes a function as an argument, just like here as you can see in the documentation. Alright, it didn't say exactly, but one of the documentation I went through, it said that the carrying is the transformation of a function which takes a function and then return, it takes a function with the multiple arguments and then transform or convert them into a function which takes a single argument. Okay, so that's why I declare the carry function with a single argument, which then return what happening here. Hang on a second. All right, return another function. Okay, that takes a value, let's say name 1. Okay, and then it does nothing, it just return another function. So you can say nested function into, it meant to go inside the parentheses. Okay, then it takes that return another function that takes name2, and finally it adding the two name together. Okay, then all it does, right? And okay, sorry, hang on a second, my mistake, because the carry function now takes a function as an argument, not name. At this point I wanted to convert this function convert the function from multiple argument to a single argument. Okay, just like this, name1 and name2. So what happened here, let's say I have declared the function where I have problem with multiple arguments. Now this is the process of converting that function, and here finally I take a variable, let's say, okay, transform. I call the carry and I pass that function names inside that carry function. Okay, and then I, let's say, okay, and now I console.log that transform, which is basically transformation of names method, names function, to a argument where I basically pass the sequence of single argument value. Okay, let's say James, and let's say Jerry, right? So what is happening here, we calling transform. The transform is pointing to this carry function that takes name function, which used to take two argument. Okay, but now as you can see, I'm passing one argument. So when I call the carry function, it takes the name function. It doesn't execute name function. It takes the name function and does split that name function into from one function to multiple function. Okay, so it takes the name function inside and then breaks it down to one function, and then takes return another function, and then it does the operation like it does what it is to here. What is happening here, previously we had to separate them by a comma. Okay, so then it didn't have any problem. Okay, but now, hang on a second, but now it's when I call the transform, it taking the help of the transform, it basically transform the names function to a position look like this. Okay, so transform, it takes the argument and it passed it to the name, and then whenever let me clear very clearly here. As you can see, it takes the name function inside the carry, and then it breaks down to return an anonymous function, and then it takes an argument, then it passes the James to the first into the name placeholder, and then basically return another function that has another placeholder name2, then it passes Jerry here, and then it calling that name function here again. It calling the name function finally, and then it passes the two argument together in that function, and whatever returning is returned to that the place of carry function. Then what happened then? So what we get after all of this hassle, we get like we had to declare the two argument in a same place, but separated by a comma. But now we can call one argument here, and what's the important thing is in any place like we went through before, like a pipe. So if we have a scenario like this, we can then pass the second argument in the next execution. Okay, so that is the outcome of all of these concept on carrying function. Okay, so this video is getting way too longer. I wanted to basically explain what the carrying function is, but I believe at this point you now know actually Okay, hang on a second. Before I go, I should show you that it is actually working. So let's save and go to the app. And as you can see, you got James and Carrie, I mean James and Jerry. Though not with the space, I never declared a space, but as you can see, it's working the same way. Okay, so it basically a transformation of function which used to take multiple argument to a function which takes a sequence of single argument. Okay, it breaks down the function to takes a sequence of single argument. Okay, that is the currying function. I hope this video was useful, and if it's useful, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want. And then if you have any question, then please write them in the comment section below, and I will try my best to answer them. Until then, keep learning, keep coding, and goodbye.